Welcome everyone back to the channel, and today we got a brand new BO6 Zombies video for you guys, in which we are going to be discussing everything that is going to be coming with inside of the game at launch later this week, with an updated look to the Liberty Falls map since the COD Next event, as well as HUD changes, and an in-depth look at the new augment system coming to the game, confirmed GobbleGums that are going to be within the game at launch, and so much more. If you guys do enjoy this video and are excited about BO6 Zombies, please make sure you hit that like button and subscribe for more BO6 content, as we will be covering the game as the year goes on. But let's jump right into discussing the new look to Liberty Falls, as the map looks completely different since the COD Next event, as Treyarch has listened to the feedback given to them by the community since we saw it at the COD Next event, in which now it looks like a more recent Dimensional Breach, looking more chaotic, looking a little bit darker, as well as this is what the map looked like during the COD Next event. As you can see, it is a very bright map, and now it looks like this with this crazy storm behind, as well as it looking a little bit more gray. But with these map changes, there also has been changes to the brand new HUD that is going to be coming for Zombies, as it has been touched up since the COD Next event as well, with character portraits now being next to the health bar just like they were in BO4 and BO3, as well as the perk icons now being positioned closer together. As you can see, this is what our HUD looked like during the COD Next event. The perk icons are a little bit spread out. There is no character portrait, but this is now what the new HUD will look like. As you can see, there is the character portrait, and those perks are a lot closer. There will also be zombie-specific widgets added into the game for certain actions within the game, as well as an animation for when you earn GobbleGums with inside the game, as well as there are new ways for us to customize our HUDs with inside the game, as they have updated that, allowing us to have additional ways for us to customize our HUD, with adding more things for us to disable or finally tune it a little bit better. But with that, let's talk about the brand new augment system that is coming with inside the game. As we previously covered this in the video in the top left hand corner here, there are going to be 108 augments total within the game at launch, with perks having 6 augments for every perk in the game, that making a total of 48 augments, with our first one being Juggernaut, with our first major augment being Probiotic, which will give us a slight increase to health with this equipped. Our next major augment being Turtle Shell, in which it's going to have our armor act like a shield on our back, completely absorbing the damage that we take on our back, as well as not allowing us to have damage towards us on the front, acting like Victorious Tortoise was in BO4. And our last major augment being Reactive Armor. When our armor plates break, nearby zombies will be stunned for a short period of time. Now our first minor augment being Retaliation, in which we will have bonus damage to be dealt out while we have low health. Our next one being Hardened Plates, allowing our armor plates to not have more damage dealt to us. And our last minor augment being Durable Plates, in which our plates will have a slight increase in durability. Our next part we're going to cover is Stamina, with the first major augment to it being Free Fall, in which we're going to become immune to fall damage. Our next one being Dasher, which is an increase in our attack sprint duration. Finally, our last major augment being Stalker, in which we're going to be able to walk faster while aiming. Now let's look at the minor augments for Stamina, with our first one being Hard Target. While we are attack sprinting, projectile damage will be reduced. Our next one being Quarterback, in which we are going to be able to throw equipment while sprinting. And our final minor augment for Stamina being Hot Foot, in which we gain a speed boost after our equipment kills the zombie. And our next perk that we're going to cover for augments being Speed Cola, with its first major augment being Supercharged, in which field upgrades recharge a bit faster. Our next one being Classic Formula, in which our reload speed is even faster. And finally, our last major augment being Phantom Reload, in which weapon magazines are slowly refilled over time. Now let's cover the minor augments for Speed Cola, with our first one being Speedy Roulette, in which the mystery bot spins a lot faster. Our next one being Quick Swap, in which we are able to swap our weapons faster. And finally, being Fast Pitcher, in which we are able to craft equipment a lot faster. Now that we have covered Speed Cola's augment, now let's look at Deadshot's augments, with our first major augment being Deadhead, in which we have further increased damage to our crit damage. Our next one being Dead First, which we deal double crit damage if an enemy is at full health. Our next one being Dead Again, in which critical hits have a chance of adding a bullet to our magazine. And our first minor augment being Dead Break, which we have increased damage to armor zombies. And our next one being Dead Draw, in which our hip fire spread is reduced. And our final minor augment being Dead Set, in which we have reduced gun movement while performing advanced movements. Now that we have covered Deadshot's augments, now let's look at Quick Revive's augments, with our first major augment being EMT, in which reviving an ally allows them to keep all the perks that are on their bleed out bar. Our next one being Equivalent Exchange, in killing an enemy while downed will revive you, and remove Quick Revive, which can be done up to 3 times. Our next one and final one being Dying Wish, in which on lethal damage become immune to all damage for 2 seconds and keep 1 health, while Quick Revive will be used upon use of that. And now our minor augments being Swift Recovery, in which reviving an ally increases both you and the ally you revived movement speeds for a short amount of time. Our next one being Karmic Return, in which reviving an ally heals you to full health. And then our final minor augment being Slow Death, in which you have an increased time in your last stand. Now let's get into Elemental Pop's augments, with our first major augment being Citrus Focus. If a weapon has an ammo mod applied, Elemental Pop will only activate that specific ammo mod. Our next one being Imperial Peach, in which enemies that hit you have a chance to trigger a random ammo mod. And our final major augment being Electric Cherry, in which reloading creates an electric damage discharge that damages and stuns nearby zombies. The emptier the magazine, the stronger the damage is. Now let's get to our first minor augment, that being Vulnera Bean, in which it slightly increases the enemy's elemental weakness damage. Our next one being Pineapple Blast, in which equipment can also trigger a random ammo mod. And our final minor augment being Chillberry, in which we have slightly reduced ammo mod cooldowns. Now let's get into our augments for PhD Flopper, with our first major augment being Gravity MD, in which just falling from heights creates an explosion. Our next one being Dr. Ram, in which Tat Sprints when we run into base zombies damages them. And our final one being PhD Slider, in which sliding into zombies triggers an explosion. Now let's get into our minor augments for PhD Flopper, in which we have Environmentalist, in which we become immune to environmental damage while sliding. And then we got EOD Technician, in which we have slightly reduced height and distance requirements for explosions. And then we have Dry Biologist, in which sliding distance and speeds are increased. And now let's get into our final perk, that being Melee Macchiato, with its first major augment being Espresso, in which all melee attacks are slightly faster. Then we have Vampiric Extraction, in which melee attacks heal you a small amount. And our final major augment being Triple Shot, in which your punches can hit a zombie multiple times at once. And now our first minor augment for Melee Macchiato is Sticks and Move, in which Backpedal speed is increased after a successful melee attack. Our next one being Strength Training, in which your punch can one-hit kill normal zombies for longer. And our last one being Hidden Impact, in which melee kills reload a portion of your weapon that you are holding. Now that we have covered every perk augment within the game, now let's look at every ammo mods augments within the game. Starting off with Brain Rot, its first major augment is Plague, in which the charmed enemy or the turned zombie has a chance of turning other zombies. Then we have Pheromone, in which the turned zombie distracts nearby zombies, being normal and special zombies for a short period of time. And the last major augment being Bid Game, in which Brain Rot can change elite zombies. Now for our minor augments for Brain Rot, we have Extension, in which the Brain Rot duration is slightly increased. Next is Haste, in which the Brain Rot cooldown is slightly reduced. And finally we have Explosive, in which the turned zombie explodes at the end of the Brain Rot duration, dealing toxic damage. Next, let's look at Cryo Freeze's augments, with its first major augment being Bid Game, in which Cryo Freeze can slow elite zombies. Next being Ice Cloud, in which zombies that are killed while frozen may leave a cloud that slows other zombies. And finally, we have Frozen Stiff, in which enemies are frozen in place. And now that we have minor augments for cryo freeze, in which we have extension, in which it has a slightly increase for the slow duration of the zombies. Then we have freezer burn, in which has a slight increase in damage to frozen zombies. And finally we have liquid nitrogen, in which it has a significantly increased chance of cryo freeze activating as an ammo mod. Now let's cover Deadwire's augments, in which our first major augment is chain lightning, in which stunned zombies can then spread out the Deadwire to other zombies. Next we have Bid Game, in which the Deadwire can activate on elite zombies. And our last major augment being Lightning Strike, in which a bolt of lightning strikes from above the zombies, stunning all normal and special zombies around that affected lightning strike. Now let's look at our minor augments for Deadwire, in which we have High Voltage, in which Deadwire deals slightly more damage. And then we have Haste again, being that Deadwire has a slightly reduced cooldown. And then we have Extension, in which the stun and electric field lasts longer. Now let's look at Napalm Burst augments, in which we have Bid Game, in which Napalm Burst can burn elite zombies. Then we have Thermite, in which it increases the burn damage effect on zombies. And finally we have Firebomb, in which burned enemies explode on death, spreading the fire to other nearby zombies. Now let's look at the minor augments, in which we have Extension, in which the burn duration is increased. Then we have Incendiary, in which each damage tick has a small chance of spreading to other zombies. And then we have Contact Burn, which initial burn effects deal more damage. And finally we have Shadow Rifts, with its first major augment being Bid Game, in which the Shadow Rift can be affected on elite zombies. Then we have Topple Danger, in which warp one enemy that deals shadow damage to other zombies. And finally we have Explosive Rain, in which zombies that are dropped from portals then explode on contact with the ground. Now we have our minor augments for Shadow Rift, with Haste, with the cooldown being reduced for Shadow Rift. We have Targeted, in which dropped enemies will fall on other zombies. And then we have Supermassive, in which the singularity lethal radius is increased and can kill more than one zombie. Now that we have covered every ammo mod, let's look at all the field upgrades, with them being 5 and having a total of 30 augments. In which first we have Ether Shroud, with its first major augment being Group Shroud, in which nearby players can also get the effect of Ether Shroud. And we have next Burst Dash, in which you can be launched forward a short distance, killing all normal zombies within your path. And then you have Void Sheath being your last one, in which you swap to your dedicated melee weapon, and it's imbued with dark ether energy, in which kills allow you to stay in the Ether Shroud for longer. And now we have our minor augments for Ether Shroud, in which we have Instant Reload, which activation instantly reloads your current weapon that you are holding. You have an Extra Charge, in which you increase the match charges by 1. And finally we have Extension, in which Ether Shroud's duration is significantly increased. Next we have our new field upgrade being Dark Flare, in which its first major augment is Extension, in which we significantly increased its duration. Next we have Supernova, in which the beam is replaced with a sphere that damages nearby zombies as it travels. The ball detonates at the end of Dark Flare's duration. And finally we have Dark Pact, in which the beam heals and revives other players on contact. Now let's look at our minor augments for Dark Flare, in which we have Broad Beam, in which it is significantly increases the size of the beam that is fired. Next we have Heavy Shadow, in which the beam slows zombies on contact. And finally we have Extra Charge, in which we increase our charges by 1. Now let's look at Frenzied Guards augments, with the major augments being Phalites, in which teammates can also repair their armor from kills while you are near them. Next we have Retribution, in which it triggers an explosion on activation, in which normal zombies that melee the player are damaged and knocked down. And finally we have Frenzied Fire, in which while you are frenzied, your ammo is used from your stock. Next we have our minor augments, in which we have Repair Boost, in which repair more armor per kill. Then we have Extension, in which it increases the Frenzied Guard duration. And finally we have Rally, in which on activation repair all nearby teammates' armor to full. Now let's look at Healing Auras augments, in which its major augments first being Resilience, in which all affected players have their health regeneration delayed, reduced, and their rate of healing increased temporarily. Next, we have Enduring Radiance, in which the beam and their healing effects persist for a short time after leaving the affected area. And finally, we have Persistence, in which reviving players that keep all perks on their bleed out bar. Now let's look at our minor augments for healing aura, with our first one being Inner Strength, in which affected players' damage is slightly increased for a short time. Next, we have Protection, in which healed players have damage slightly decreased for a short amount of time. Next, we have Stoic Persistence, in which on activation, special and elite zombies are stunned while normal zombies are not down. Now let's look at our augments for Energy Mine, with our first major augment being Scatter, in which the Energy Mine is split into 3 separate mines that scatter and detonate one at a time for each mine. Next, we have Turret. Instead of a mine, deploy a turret that shoots at nearby enemies. And finally, we have Carousel, in which 3 energy mines will float around you and detonate when zombies are near you. Now let's look at our minor augments for Energy Mine, that being Frequency Boost, in which increased detonation count and duration of Energy Mine. Next, we have Extra Charge, in which we increased our max charges by 1. And finally, we have Siren, in which Energy Mine now attracts nearby zombies for a short time. Now that is every augment that is coming with inside of BO6 Zombies. Now let's look at every confirmed GobbleGum coming with inside of BO6 Zombies, with our first one being our rare GobbleGums, with our first one being Stock Option, in which ammo is taken from players' stockpile instead of their weapon's magazine. Next being Killjoy, in which this will spawn an instant kill power up. Next being Anywhere But Here, in which it instantly teleports you to a random location on the map and causes a concussive blast that knocks away any nearby zombies. Next is Cashback, in which this is going to spawn a max ammo drop. Our next one is going to be Temporal Gift, in which this activates on a time-based power-up and causes it to last longer. Our next one is Shields Up, which will last for 3 minutes, and our armor is twice as strong. And finally, our last rare GobbleGum is Arsenal Accelerator, in which this will last 5 minutes and charge the player's field upgrade much faster. Now let's look at our epic GobbleGums, with our first one being Nowhere But There, instantly teleporting us to a random down player on the map and instantly revive that player as well. Next will be Who's Keeping Score, in which this will spawn a double points power up. Next will be Free Fire, which will last for 60 seconds, firing a weapon that consumes no ammo, but it does not work on wonder weapons. Our next one will be Soda Fountain, in which this will activate when you purchase your next perk, also giving you a random perk as well. Your next one will be Profit Sharing, in which this will last for 2 minutes, in which a portion of the points you earn is also received by nearby players and vice versa. Our next one is Respin Cycle, in which this allows you to respin the mystery box after it has settled on 1 or equal higher rarity. And our final one being a brand new one, this being Exit Strategy, in which this will activate an exfil voted immediately and also reduce the zombie spawns during that exfil. Now let's look at our legendary GobbleGums, with our first one being Idle Eyes, in which this will last 30 seconds, in which all zombies will ignore the player and stand idle. Our next one being Wall Power, in which the next wall weapon you buy will be Pack-a-Punched. Our next one being Crate Power, in which the next weapon you get from the mystery bots will be Pack-a-Punched. Our next one will be Phoenix Up, in which this will revive all teammates and they will keep all their perks. Our next one being On the House, in which this will spawn a random perk power up. And next we have Wall to Wall Clearance, in which this will last 30 seconds, in which all wall buys will cost 10 points. And finally, we have Immolation Liquidation, in which this will spawn a Fire Cell power up. Now let's look at our Ultra GobbleGums, with our first one being Perkaholic, in which this gives the player all perks on the map. Our next one being Near Death Experience, which will last for 3 minutes, which allows you to revive or be revived simply by being near other players. Revived players keep all their perks as well. Next, we have a brand new GobbleGum, that being Hidden Power, in which this upgrades your currently held weapon to legendary rarity. Next is another new GobbleGum, this being Wunderbar, in which this activates on your next bot spin, and this will then allow your next bot spin to have a wonder weapon in it. And finally, our last Ultra GobbleGum being Raindrops, in which this will spawn all the power-ups on the map at one time. And finally, we have Whimsical GobbleGums, with our first one being Newtonian Negotiation, in which this will last for 3 minutes, in which all zombies that you kill will flash straight up to the top of the map. And we have our final one being a brand new one, being Indigestion. This one will also last 3 minutes, in which zombies killed experience extreme fluctuation. Now that we have covered every confirmed GobbleGum coming with inside of BO6 Zombies, let's look at how our loadout options are going to be with inside the weapons menu for zombies, with our first slot being the weapon, which is our primary weapon, or this can be a secondary, with those options being our assault rifles, SMGs, shotguns, LMGs, marksman rifles, sniper rifles, pistols, and launchers. Our next slot is a melee weapon, in which this is a close quarters weapon with no range ordnance. Our next option is our field upgrade. Our next ones being our tactical equipment, these being our concussion grenades, smoke grenades, stem shots, decoys, shot charges. We also have 2 zombie exclusive ones, those being the monkey bomb and the Casimirs. Those tacticals are only crafted with inside the maps of the game and also available on ground loot, but they are not able for you to bring straight into the game at the start. We also have lethals being our next one, with those being the grenade, a sticky grenade, C4, thermo grenades, impact grenades, molotovs, blast trap, and the combat axe. And finally, we have our GobbleGum packs, in which these can be changed with inside your game, so you can swap them out as you're going throughout your game. So say you have an early round one to make you some points, and then you want to change it out to get more pack punch and perks, you can do that, but you gotta make sure you select those GobbleGums within those packs so you can be able to swap them out. And finally, we have our support equipment that is going to be with inside of BO6 Zombies, with our first one being the armor plate, and our next one being the ARCXD. Then we have the LDBR, and then the Hellstorm. We also have the sentry turret, a mangler cannon, a chopper gunner, and the brand new mutant injection, as well as the self-revives to be bought. However, you can only craft 3 self-reses per match, unlike in Cold War where you could buy a ton of self-reses. No matter how many times you went down, you were always able to go back and craft self-reses. In BO6, you will only be able to craft a max of 3 self-reses in the game. And with that, guys, that is everything that is going to be coming with inside of BO6 Zombies just before the release of the game, with the brand new updated Liberty Falls look, the HUD changes, and a more in-depth look at augments and the confirmed GobbleGums, and so much more. But if you guys did enjoy this video, please make sure you hit the like button and subscribe for more BO6 content. And I will catch you all in the next video. Peace.